Okay, we're now ready to rig the arms. However, I just want to make a note that I actually went through this one time already, and I realized that the arms that I made were just not good. So what I've done is I've remade them. I haven't textured this version yet, but if I show you real quick, go ahead and save that really fast. These are the original arms that I had made, and if you look at the mesh flow here in the hand, the way that I did this, it's all quads and everything, and all of this stuff is somewhat okay, except my connection to the thumb really wasn't good. What I really need is for these loops to pretty much swing around here to get better animation. And also the animation wasn't working out so well here either at the elbow joint. So I went ahead and just remade them, and I'll make the new ones available. These arms are actually pretty useless. Here is where I was actually at on that, and I did some edits, but what's going on is I'll just show you. For those of you who've done skinning before, I'm sure you're aware. Actually, I got rid of the skin modifier, but I tried to edit it to help things out, and it just wasn't working very well. So I've built new ones from scratch and with a much better flow now. And want to make a note that I've also switched over to Max 2010, and right now I'm in 2012 because you can tell I've got this realistic viewport filter, but going to be doing this in 2010, and the reason for that is because 2012 doesn't actually have a version of ActorX available for it. 2010 does. So I'll be opening up this, I called it Arms Redo, this scene in Max 2010. Now if you've been working in 12 or 11, there is a version of ActorX for 2011, so you're free to use 2011. You're free to use all the way down through 2008, I believe, is one of the earliest ones you pretty much want to mess with. So before I can open that in 2010, I'm just going to call this Arms Rigging, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, and then I can close this and open up 2010. I'm going to pause the video and do that. Okay, so I've got this is Max 2012 still. I actually made a mistake. Let me save it as Arms Rigging. I got to make sure that under my my save as type here that I pick 2010. Then I hit save and I just say yes to replace it, and then I can close that down, and then in Max 2010 I can open up the same scene basically. Okay, now when I open this up, it defaults, if you look, everything's getting all kind of weird on me, and a lot of that has to do with this hardware, enable hardware shading. If you uncheck that, it's back to kind of just the basic viewport, and your edges will disappear. The verts that you have picked will not show up sometimes when you're using hardware. So just take off hardware. You don't really need it. If you need to see this in really good detail, you just pretty much want to render it anyway. And I just want to show you really quick the difference between the two meshes. Okay, the difference is apparent right here in the thumb. Everything else is pretty much the same. If you look here, if I take a little red line, pink, and I check where this flow is going, let me just make a new layer. Okay, it's kind of going this way or that way. This one's running down there. This one is going around, but this edge right here is kind of hitting, and this one's kind of hitting at this little wall. And if you look here, the mesh flow is really just cruising around. Okay, it makes for a better animation flow, and also I've made it much more basic up here. it'll still, like I said, I haven't textured this yet. It will still have musculature and skin texture and veins and all that stuff, but the shape is not going to be an awful lot different than what you see here, which is kind of basic. If you need, you know, really muscular arms or whatever, like I said, you can always take this into ZBrush or Mudbox or 3D Coat or whatever you want to use, and morph it, you know, blend it, you know, sculpt it into whatever you want. You're free to use this base mesh if you want, or use it as a reference, or create your own from scratch. The other thing I did do is I inset an elbow and pulled that out, because that might come in handy. I did a little bit of a test rig just to start out, so I wanted to make sure that this was gonna work. And if I go here to local rotation, it's working out okay. I didn't rig everything yet. I haven't tweaked it too much, but it works out pretty good so far. Let me make sure I rotate all these on their own axis. Okay, so it's not too bad. It'll work fine. It's much better than the one that I was using before, which was, to be quite honest with you, was actually kind of embarrassing. Okay, so I've also gone ahead and made sure that the scale of this is the same as the scale in UDK to the character, and I've made sure that that it's all baked down to 100%. If I unhide all, here's the reference that I did for the hand. Okay, if you look, this hand's actually a lot more realistic shaped than the other hand that I was using before too. So that's good. You know, it's always a good idea to use your reference. Before I just did it by eye, and I messed it up pretty bad. It was really mannequin-y looking and very melted looking, and I think that the form on this is a little bit better. All right, especially once it, you know, starts getting into shape of the animations. So let me unfreeze all and just get rid of that reference. Okay, and one handy feature is, okay, you see that I've already started this, but I'm going to delete it. If I want to just get all the bones, there's a nice trick. Let me just make all the bones here real quick, like a nice dark blue. Okay, so that it's easily distinguishable between, if I hide selection. Now it's very obvious what I have selected and what I don't. You always want to work your colors so that you're easily able to tell. If I pick this guy without clicking anything and I do page up, you can see it goes, and I do page down. Page up kind of goes up through my hierarchy, and page down goes down through my hierarchy, and that's really handy, especially when you want to select the whole thing, because all I got to do is select this root bone and hit Control and page down, and it gets everything. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that and unhide all. I'm going to take these arms, and I have a skin modifier on it. I'm just going to dump that. Okay, I'm going to hit G, and I want to move this to my 0 point. I did move this down 3 units like I had before. Okay, this is aligned. I don't know if pretty sure I showed and explained that, but we decided to move the arms down 3 units so that they would sit better in the one-player view, and that was just from experimentation. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and mirror this with symmetry in the Y and hit flip. Okay, and I'll just collapse that. I don't need that anymore. So now really I'm ready to start drawing out my skeleton. So if I go to my Create tab, which is here, Create, and then I go to Create Systems and Bones, I can now, let's use the top view here. It's going to be a little easier for me to see. I'll just start drawing one from somewhere here. I'll just draw it anywhere, and then I right click, and it leaves me with this little nub. Okay, now what I can do is if I go to Animation and pull up these bone tools, there's what's called a bone edit mode. What I can do is I can take bones in a chain and move them. So if I take this guy and I make sure that it's at 0, 0, 0, okay, I can actually now just delete this and make sure that the rotation when in my view axis is 0, 0, 0. Okay, so I definitely want this guy right at my origin. Okay, this is my registration point. If you ever needed to attach this to a certain point in the game, so say move your whole character and your camera, you can use this center registration point to do that, so that you could run like an animation. Like if you needed your camera to, bend down and look at a crate, so that these arms actually reach down to open a treasure chest or something, and you want to make sure that the hands don't, that they go, that they land in the right spot, and that it actually grabs the handle or whatever and moves it properly. You've seen that in games. Usually when you hit E, what they do is before they run the animation, they actually teleport you to an exact spot in the world so that everything lines up. And you may or may not notice, sometimes they interpolate it by shifting the camera to that position. Other times you just kind of snap there and it's really noticeable, but for the most part they tend to do that. So you want to have a registration point, and you want it to be at your origin. Okay, so what this is our root bone, so we're going to call it B underscore root. Okay, and now we can basically just draw out the rest of our skeleton. I'm going to hide the grid real quick, and I'm going to actually work in wireframe view, and I'm going to start creating new bones. Okay, and I'm just going to draw them roughly. Okay, you just click once and it starts rubber banding that bone, and as soon as you click again it locks that in and then starts drawing the next bone. I'm actually going to give myself an elbow bone. Okay, then I'm going to stop at my wrist, and then I'm going to run basically that bone straight through the hand and right click. Okay, and then I'm going to delete that. Okay, so if I look at in the other view, you can see it's higher because it's actually resting on the origin here. Okay, I need to move it down later, but I don't need to worry about that yet. Okay, now I can zoom in on the hand, and I can do my fingers. So your fingers actually start back behind the end of the webbing and the fat of your finger. If you look at your fingers and you bend the first digit on one of them, you can see that it's not here that the bone starts. It's actually back here at the knuckle. Okay, so that's where we're going to start it, and we're just going to draw out 3 bones. I'm going to go a little bit past the tip and just hit right click. Okay, I'll get a little closer so it might be easier to see. You just want to go right to the middle of these knuckles and then terminate it at the tip. Okay, so just click, click, and click. Very simple. You're just drawing out a chain. You don't drag. You just tap. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the thumb. Now the thumb bone was actually pretty much hooked in about right here. So that's where I'm going to start it. And then I got another knuckle that's right in the middle right here. I could give myself another segment to make that more obvious. And then I go to the tip out here, which is, I'm drawing past my view, but that's okay. I can just click. And if I right click, and now I can scrub around and move that. Okay, and remember, every time you right click, you end up with these little nodes that are actually bones. They just don't have any distance. They don't have any length to them, and they don't hurt anything to have them there, but we will end up deleting them later. So before we do that, what I'm going to do now is just uncheck bones. I'm going to hit escape and it'll get off of that. Now I want to make sure that these bones are actually in a good position relative to the top view. And what I use is back here up at the bone tools, bone edit mode allows me to just click a bone, and then I can move it without moving the origin of any of the bones that are connected to it. And it's really handy. So you can just basically click a bone and move it, and then I could always hit page down to get to the next bone and move that. And with this tip bone here, it actually allows me to more easily position that guy, and that's why I left that in there for now. That bone looks good. This bone looks good. That one looks good. And actually that one looks good from where I originally drew it. This one could be a little more centered. Okay. So just going to align these to the middles. Okay, I want to be in the center of these segments. Pretty much want to be somewhere around here. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, if I had this up here, it wouldn't matter. It's just going to rotate. So the only reason I have it facing this way is so that it's more visually representative of what's going on. And let me fix the wrist to be in better line here. And also my elbow, which is the reason that I split this into an extra bone, is because it helps this deformation better. This only if my whole arm is 90 degrees, this only rotates 45, this rotates 45, and I have a little bit easier time blending what I'm doing. So I'm just going to take this out a little bit past there. Okay. So there's my basic skeleton for the hand, which is quite simple, to be honest with you. Now what I want to do is I want to give myself a forearm twist bone. Now if you didn't ever give yourself an elbow and you just went bicep to forearm here, there is a way that you can add in detail to your skeleton, and it's called the refine, and all you gotta do is click on the bone and you can see that it splits it wherever you click it. Okay, so now I can take this guy and move that into a better position. Okay, so at any point if I wanted to add another segment, I can always just click, click, click. Okay, so you can split your bones using the refine tool from this animation bone tools here. Make sure you uncheck that guy. Okay, now what I want to do is just going to hide this really quick. Now if I look in my perspective view, I don't need my bone tools anymore. And I take this, I have a hierarchy, except my fingers aren't going with it, so what I need to do is I need to link these to the wrist. So I'm just going to select all these bones at one time and use my link tool right here, click and drag, and you can see I get the rubber band, and just land that on the wrist and let go. Got to be wary because it does keep this active. Okay, so if I do this to here and then I let go and I say, okay, now I want to move this, now it's trying to link again. So make sure you come off of that by either picking one of these others, select move rotator or scale. And now if I take this and I rotate it, you see the hand goes with it. Okay, all of these are still in their hierarchy. Okay, now look at my top view. You also notice that if I come here to local, that because I drew it in the exact top view, none of these bones are all tweaked out at some weird angle. They're Z facing up, and that's what we want. Okay, you always can double check that by changing your move tool to local, and see it through my X down this way, my Y's that way, my Z's up. Okay, so that looks good. And now what I can do is I can just copy all this stuff over to the other side by using the mirror tool, and that again is in the bone tools, and it's just mirror here. You can hit Y, okay, and you can see that it mirrors over. However, if I look closely here, you can see that when I do it, it's mirroring based off of this bone. And part of the reason for that is because if I move this guy, it's not linked to anything. So what I need to do is I need to actually link by clicking and dragging to my root bone. Okay, this has to be the top of my hierarchy, and now I should be able to hit this mirror, and it still wants to do it here, so what I do is just include that, and now I've mirrored over and I hit OK. However, you have to be careful when you do that it does mirror your root bone. See, I got this root bone mirrored. If I scrub across, I got two objects here. So what I want to do is actually delete the root bone mirrored, and this was linked to the root bone mirrored, so now it's not, so I just need to manually link this there. And now I can pretty much control my whole skeleton with this one root bone. Okay, so unhide. And now I'm going to take these guys, and I'm going to use, let's say, my left view, and I'm going to move them down. I don't want to move everything, just want to get the two roots here and move them down. Now that's the problem, right? Like I explained, I can't do that because they're linked to this, so really I have to break their link before I can move them. Okay? So I'm just going to zoom in here and try to get that right down the middle. I want to double check that my fingers are down the middle. Okay, I can also change this to view here and use my view center, so I can have a gizmo over here and move that into a good position. Okay, and then when I'm done with that, let's go back to my perspective view. I can take both of these guys and link them back. Okay, see, it makes a rubber band from both of them. And now this, once again, is back in control, and my skeleton's is in a good position. Okay, so when we go to actually, I'm just going to save this. I want to redraw that in case I get a crash. Now really what we need to do is we need to name our skeleton, and this is actually a little bit of a pain. We also don't need these tips anymore because we've actually positioned our bones now. So these tips I can just dump. And now we want to name our skeleton. We want to name it something that both the artist and the programmer have agreed upon. This is not, a UDK skeleton. This is custom, completely 100%. Okay, this doesn't have to be human arms. Okay, this could be some kind of fish fins or something really weird. Robot, 8-sided, 8 arms or something. Okay, so this method works for any custom character. However, we do want to agree, because right now they're all named. If I hit H here and I go to display and expand all, really I'm just looking at bone 1 through 23, and then I'm looking at bone 1 through 19 over here mirrored. Okay, I had gotten, you can see it's skipping 16. That was because those little tips took that bone name. So what I'm going to do is just going to name this B underscore. Okay, it's a good start. And then this is the right arm, so I'm just going to go R bicep. Okay, and then I'm going to go B underscore R elbow. And then I'm going to go B underscore R forearm. Then I'm going to do B underscore R forearm twist. Okay, and then B underscore R wrist. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is B underscore thumb R, thumb, and then I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm just going to hit 1, then I'm going to click this and just paste and hit 2, paste and hit 3. Okay, that's nice and quick. So I'm going to paste this, and this is my forefinger, so I'm just going to call it 4, Control C, then hit 1, Control V2, Control V3. This is my forefinger, my middle finger, my ring finger, and my pinky. And then I also need to do the same thing back here, except I need to name it B_L and all these names. So I'm going to go through and do that and pause the video because it's going to take about 2-3 minutes and there's just no point in you guys watching me rename a bunch of stuff. Okay, I'm back and I'm all renamed. Just check a couple. L bicep. L4 3. Okay. Left 4 finger 3. Okay, so unhide all. And now, really, we're ready to add our skin modifier. So we just select our object, skin modifiers under the modifier tab, and it's just called skin. Okay, and then what we're going to do is you're going to come here to bones and hit add. And we're going to pick everything. Okay, just drag from the first one down to the last, or you can say select all, or you can hit Control A. Either way, just get everything. Okay. Now what we're going to do is now we're going to edit our envelopes. And actually what we can do is just for fun, I always do this. You can see that when it generates the skin modifier, it does actually kind of weight it a little bit, but it's really just not good enough for our purposes. Okay, it crimps a lot of things. Yeah, make sure I get the bone here. Alright, it doesn't do an awful job, but I usually wipe it clean and start from scratch. And there's a lot of different ways that people do this, painting the weights, using the envelopes, things like that. I personally like to dial this by hand. It's really only ever have to do it about one time, unless things start going wrong, and then you gotta fix everything and all that. But what I do is I do it by hand using basically the absolute effect field right here. And there's also this weight tool which pops up this little window that gives you kind of a couple of different weight values that you can just click on. One is actually 100%. Okay, that's 90%, 75%. Okay, so 1 equals 100, 1 equals full. Okay, it's not from 0 to 100, it's from 0 to 1. So what I do is I hit here, edit envelopes, and then I can hit it again to come out of it. Okay, it's actually the same thing as just clicking skin here a second time. Like if I'm off the object and I click here and then I click skin, it automatically pops into edit envelope. What we want to do is we want to go by verts. Okay, and we don't need envelopes or cross sections. Alright, let me move this tool out of the way. I like to go to display and uncheck drawing on top all this stuff. You definitely want to have show colored verts and show colored faces showing, and this mirror mode we're going to use later to alleviate our work, because we're only gonna skin one arm, and then we're just going to copy it over and it's going to be done, and that'll be nice. So with edit envelopes checked here, and on my bones I'm highlighting my root bone. You can see it's got an envelope around it. Okay, I'm just going to select all my verts and just hit 1. So now my root bone, I've wiped it basically. I'm starting completely from scratch. My root bone controls everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right bicep, I'm just going to take the whole arm and I'm going to hit 1. So now the bicep has got control over the entire right arm. And I like to work in, usually like to work in the top view. Okay, if your loops are clean and stuff, which they're not always, you can see that they're not so clean here, that they're not in perfect unison with each other. And I did that in order to get a better form. However, I can still catch them. What we're going to do is we're going to run down our chain, and we're just going to keep assigning weights as we go down, and that will ensure that nothing from down here accidentally picks up some verts up here, and we get, if I bend the elbow, this little point comes flipping out over here and stuff like that. So we just run down the chain, we go to elbow, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all these verts here by holding Alt. Okay, keeping these in this line, I'm just going to hit 0.5. Then I'm going to get rid of that line and I'm going to hit 1. So now the elbow is 50% here, and the elbow is shooting and taking over everything else down the line. So I just go to my next bone, going to make that joint right here 50, then get rid of it and hit 1. So now this got control over everything. I'm going to go to my forearm twist. This I'm going to need to blend much better, but for now I'm just going to run down the line. Okay, and get my wrist. And make sure you get rid of that segment, and then I can go 1. Okay, so now my arm is broken up with a 50% blend joint at each one of these marker points, and that's not good enough, but it does work out okay just to get started. So then really now I'm going to be working on my fingers. So now I kind of want to change my view. I'm just going to click off. Now up until about here is where the pinky needs to start affecting. Okay, so I'm just going to take it up here. I'm going to do a very global blast of all of these settings because I'm going to be tweaking it later. So I'm just going to hit 0.5 and get rid of that, and then hit 1. So now my pinky's got control over all this. And go to my pinky 2 here. And I'm just going to pick one of these joints. I'm going to pick the first one or the last one. On pinky 2, hit 0.5 and get rid of that joint, hit 1. Okay, pinky 3 and get rid of that guy, and just try to rotate till I can get a nice point here, and then hit 0.5, get rid of that and hit 1. Okay, now my pinky is good. It's not great, but it's working. Okay, now I do my middle finger. I'm just going to go down the line of bones here. You can see them highlight up here, which is a nice thing. And I'm going to get all of this, and I'm also including these that are between the two fingers. I'm going to have to tweak that, okay, but it's not that big of a deal. And I make sure I get the rest of the whole finger. Just going to hit 0.5, get rid of that and hit 1. Come to mid 2 here, try to get a good angle on it. Get rid of all of this stuff. 0.5 and then 1. And then my mid 3, gonna get rid of this, and go 0.5, get rid of the joint, hit 1. Okay, now I do my forefinger. Again, I want to pick up most of this stuff up here, and then get the rest of everything. Let's hit 0.5. It does get a little unwieldy sometimes to manipulate your camera. I'm going to hit 1. Any errors we make, we can be easily fixed. We have to tweak anyway. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all of this. 0.5, then 1. 4, 3. Okay, get rid of that. 0.5 and get rid of that and hit 1. Okay, and now the next bone is my ring finger. Did it by alphabetical order. So again, I'm going to get all of this up here plus the rest of my finger. Just hit 0.5 there and get rid of these guys. And go to 1. Ring 2. This actually might be a little easier in my perspective view because perspective view actually gives you the ability to change perspective. If you see this ring here, if I move it up, it's more oval. If I move it down, it's more straight across. So I just get rid of everything to there at 0.5, and then 1. My ring 3. The last knuckle joint, and then 0.5. Okay, now my thumb 1, I'm gonna have to know, I have no choice but to just kind of guess how much of the hand do I really want to start taking over here. It's probably not gonna be an awful lot, but a lot of this does need to blend down to with this first joint of the thumb, so I'm just going to start it somewhere. Okay, just take a guess. Oops. Forgot to hold Alt to get rid of this. I'll just go about that far. Okay. I hit 0.5 and get rid of the first couple ones, first couple of segments. And then I'm going to hit it with 1. Then I go to my thumb 2 joint. And I'm going to get rid of all of this and go 0.5. And then I'm going to get rid of these guys, which I could turn this better angle so I could just go right across that. And give the rest 1. And my thumb 3, my last digit. 0.5 at the joint, and then 1 for the rest. And then you see it's wanting to move on to the left. Okay, but I don't need to do that. I can leave the left completely untouched. And now, what we can do is just take a quick gander. Just click skin here. Pick a bone here. And do a little rotate. You can see it's not perfect, but it is better than what it initially started with. So let's pick one of these guys and make sure I'm on local here. Okay, I can bend that finger down. And you can see that there's some problems here. So what I'm going to show you next is a trick in order to fix this during deformation. It's not a trick, it's just logic. But really, what I would have to do is say, okay, well, I could fix this now, but if I go and make any edits, then I've got to figure out where this bones was to get it back to my original pose. If I undo, you can see that the bone is actually, it's like at 85 or something. It's 0 here, okay, and 0 here. But sometimes things can get a little weird. Okay, this was negative 46.026, so if I bend this and then fix my weights and I want to get this back, I don't know where that was anymore, especially if it's been a couple of minutes since I actually did my rotate. So what we do is we select our root bone and I hit Control page down, and that actually gives me every other bone. Okay, I got 41 objects selected, and I come up to animation and say set as skin pose, and what it does is it locks in that pose. So now if I rotate all of these in their local axis all at the same time, you can see that it goes all quado on me. Okay, it's wanting to find out where the reactor is. Okay, it's all mutated, and at any moment, even though I can say, okay, well, now I can fix a bunch of skin weights and do anything I want, then all I got to do is just come back here, hit Control page down, and say animation assume skin pose, and I'm back to where I was. Okay, that's very, very handy for fixing poses and your skin weights, because especially on a 3-player character where you say, okay, well, I need to bend the leg and the leg up and the knee down, and my bones are not 0, 0, 0 in their original rotations. They're at these weird 0.1 angles. I want to fix it, when it looks like this. I want to make sure that this point goes in the right place. Well, if it's back to straight, I gotta see which one of these points it was, and it can get confusing. And here's might be a good example of how that can get confusing. Is if I take this and go down, now there's a point in here that's messed up. Let's say it's this point right here. So if I undo, I'm not sure which was it, that one or that one or that one. I can't exactly remember, especially if this is complex and this is like the under part of a shoulder or something. You need to be able to pose your model, fix your skin weights, and then revert your pose, and that's very important in order to be able to make sure that your skin weights are good. And you can see here that they're not,
'good here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the thumb,
Okay, just move my thumb bone down. You can see everything's all corked out. Didn't pick up enough. I need to get more meat on the fat of the hand here. I need to blend this better. Okay, I need to take some of this stuff down with me, and maybe some of this stuff needs to not go as drastically far, but either way I gotta fix this. So what I do is I just come here and go back to my edit skin modifier, and I pick my thumb 1 bone, and I can take a vert, and you can see that thumb 1 is not affecting this at all. It's my wrist. If I highlight my wrist, has this particular point. If I look at my absolute effect on that, it's 1. So I can't exactly just take that down because it doesn't know. You can see all of the associated bones here that could potentially affect this vert that are within distance. So which one of these did it give the missing influence? Because the influence always has to add up to 1. Which one did it give it to? So instead of, so put that back to 1, instead of taking away from anything that has 100% influence, give it to something else. Okay, so I'm going to go my right thumb 1, and if I add to this, anything I add here, it takes away from the wrist. Okay, and it's guaranteed that I'm still only, this vert is only sharing influence between the two things. And using the spinner here on the absolute effect actually gives you an ability to dial in just by dragging or ticking, okay, your influence until you actually get a good blend. Okay, you can do actually a couple of them at the same time. Okay, and let's say these go a little further and that one goes a little further. Now I can shape it using this slider between the two bones. Okay, and really you just drag it up and down, and whichever direction you wanted the vert to be in is the direction you pretty much want to tweak it in, but you can go back and forth no problem. Okay, you can see I didn't get any influence there. I'm just going to go through and until my shape is much more appealing during this particular pose. And like I said, doing this is very handy because once I'm done, I don't have to worry about how am I going to get this back into its original pose, so that I can rig everything else up. Get these 3, because it's going to just assume the skin pose and I'm good to go. Now a lot of times, you know, a particular bone can move in multiple axes, such as the arm at the shoulder, and it's really just a balance. You need to kind of move the arm forward, fix it, then move it down and fix it, and try not to move it too far in any one towards any one bone, because what's good for this might not be good for spreading the thumb out or putting it together. So when you're working with a ball joint, which is this thumb joint is kind of a ball joint, it's only restricted in one axis. It is a little bit harder to balance it out. Now again, this particular vert right here is 100% on the thumb, which means if I just take away from this, I don't know which bone is actually going to take it in place. So I got to go to the bone I want to take it, which is the wrist here, and give it to that one. Okay. Like I said, don't take away, give. All right. It's like sharing is share and share alike, right? What goes for this too. Okay, so it's going to keep working. If it's already shared, it doesn't matter which bone you have highlighted. Okay. Now some of these guys here are probably actually going a little bit too far. Okay. I'm going to try to keep myself in a nice blend, and it's not too bad. Again, I can just drag it up and down until it looks like it's in a good position. And this doesn't take super long. You can see I'm actually almost done here. Let me go back to my R thumb 1. Be careful that you don't accidentally go over to the L too far down your list and start doing the left side. You want to make sure that that envelope shows up around here every time you highlight it. So I get a little bit more of this guy to kind of avoid any over pinching. I'll probably take a little bit there and a little bit there. I can probably actually take... Well, let me show you what happens if I take 2 points that have different values. You see this one's blue? It goes from red, yellow, red, orange, yellow, and then blue. What's blue barely has any influence. You can see it's 0.08. If I look at this one that's yellow, it's 0.4. Okay, it's much higher. But let's see what happens if I take 2 verts that have different values and I go to adjust it. It unfortunately, it doesn't keep them in their own value. As soon as you touch it, it unifies them into the same value. So be wary of that. That if you see a jump, it's probably because they had different values starting out. So these two, as long as there's a number in the field, then they're sharing the same value. If the field goes blank, it means that they're different. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. I can probably back this off, but again, it's at 1, so I gotta give it to somebody, and I don't want the computer to try to figure out who it's giving it to. Okay, I can probably take a little bit of this with the thumb. Doesn't hurt to experiment. If I don't like it, I can always just shoot it back to 0. It'll give it all back to the wrist. But I think I do like it. Take a little bit of this. Try to maintain my flow, still going through. Okay, my rings and my loops. Still want to maintain good curves in the pose, and that's really your goal. But also keep in mind what happens. I think I picked the wrong vert. I want that vert. Also keep in mind that if you click, you can if you look in your wireframe, there are verts up here. You don't want to be clicking here and accidentally end up with a vert back here, because you'll get problems. Okay, like I just did. I kind of thought I did. So really, to fix that, I gotta go to my forearm twist and give it back to him. Okay, you gotta just know which bones are supposed to be affecting these things. And I can explain to you in a minute here why I did a forearm twist. But let's just say I'm happy with that. Again, all I got to do is just click my root, hit Control Page down, and then Animation, Assume Skin Pose, and it goes right back. Okay, and those weights are good. Well, they're okay. I'm not going to say they're perfect. And if I spread it, okay, it might be pulling a little too much. If I close it together, it kind of pinches, and that doesn't look too bad. Okay, but for the most part, bringing it down and in a little bit, it's actually working okay. Okay, I don't really want to rotate it this way, but in these two axes, you can see that the blend's it's not so bad. Okay, it stays relatively smooth, and that's really what we're after. So now, let me just do one finger here, because I'm getting on with my time. What I'm going to do is I selected the first joint here. I'm going to hit Control Page Down. Make sure I'm on local. Make sure I'm on 2 pivot points here. Okay, use pivot point center. Then I can curl this together. You see that? Okay. Now if I go too far, it actually becomes a little difficult for me to figure out what's crossing over. So if I just back it off just a little bit to the point where they're starting to tweak, and then go a little bit further, it's going to be slightly easier for me to figure out which verts I need to pick. And then what I can do is I can just Alt get rid of these guys, and I'm just going to take this one a little more extreme so that I can fix whatever's happening up here. Now I'm going to have to balance this one out, then I'm going to have to take this one and balance it out by itself, and then I'm going to have to balance them between the two, because there are points here that need to be shared between them, and it's possible that I don't want it to be 50-50 between the two fingers, that I want it to be 30-30 and then 30 to the wrist so that each one doesn't take it too far. Okay, so like I said, it's going to be a balance, and all I got to do really is just start posing and grabbing verts, picking bones, and dragging my sliders. I don't really even need this anymore, to see what I need to fix. So now I'm working on the 4-1, okay, 4-finger 1. Just click my skin modifier here, and you can see that I might be pulling this too far. I might want to back that off. But again, I'm going between my wrist, which is the whole hand, and these objects. So I need to give some influence here to the wrist, so I can back some of these guys off a little bit. And just even ticking it to 0.02 assigns the wrist as the other bone, basically. Okay, so just to get it started, I can hit the wrist a couple of times, and then once it's started, now I can basically just and these are already to the wrist. Once it's shared between the two bones, then I can pretty much just play with my slider until one direction or the other looks good. Okay? You can see this guy might need some help. Probably go that way. This one probably doesn't want to go as far with the finger as I'm doing. Okay, probably need to keep that up there some. And there's a good chance that these don't want to go that far either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some of it to the wrist, and could also give a little bit of influence of this guy to that 4-1 bone, because it's got 0 on there. Anything there is going to be going to the middle finger. So if I just tick it over a little bit, it just starts assigning it, and I can probably compress these just a slight amount. The other thing I want to mention is do not be afraid to go very, very tiny in your increments. 0.08, it's not even 0.1, okay? That is actually, it still moves, and it still helps that blend. Really, really small increments here are useful. So I'm going to go back to my wrist real quick. Where is it? Right here. And I don't want this to go down as far. I want to maintain a little bit more knucklage so that I can make sure that this guy doesn't go hungry. These always give somebody a knuckle sandwich. I don't want that collapsing too much. And I may even want this to collapse a little bit less, and you can see that that retains a little bit more of the knuckle, like that. And then I can kind of just hit these a little bit individually until I maintain a decent curve. Don't really want to move that guy too much. That's the thing, if it goes completely in the wrong direction like that, you know, just back off of what you did, you know. You don't have to undo, just back it off. This might be collapsing a little bit more than I'd want, so I'm going to give it a little bit more back to the wrist and let it pinch up. It's really just a matter of checking all angles. What looks right in one angle might not be right in another angle. Okay, this is getting a little tight here, so I might need to help that by backing it off so that it actually goes a little bit more with the finger. See, it's like you have to take into consideration, okay, well this piece is moving, well now this piece, you know, what can I do? Well, if I back this off, then you start evening it out back and forth. This is not difficult, but it is, in every sense of the word, super tedious. And you pretty much have to be tedious to get this right. So I'm just going to move on and start working on my 4-2 finger here. Just going to get around here, around this loop, which has 0, and just take some. Okay. And now the 2 of these, I don't want that one yet, or those. Now this one's shared, so I can tweak it any way I want. Okay. Just want to kind of separate them for now. This is much less of an extreme pose than I can possibly do, but if I separate them a little bit by doing this here, then what I can do is I can get closer to that extreme pose without crimping everything over. See, now if I come off a skin modifier, I can just pick this end bone and go page up, up, and then control page down. Let me make sure I didn't, and hit E. See, now I can tighten up that rotation and more easily fix what I'm doing. So it looks like I definitely don't want that much on 4-3. Okay. And I might want to move this to get a little closer too, to let those pinch. You gotta keep in mind that your real fingers have fat on them that compresses, and much like a soft body. Okay, so that helps that out a little bit. The other thing I can do is say, okay, I'm on 4-2 here. I want to maintain a little more knuckle, so I'm just going to pull the top of it out a little bit too. Okay, and I also say I do want some bit of stretching in the knuckle. Can get that shape and let that stretch a little bit. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I can do the same thing with 4-3 here. Pick up a little bit of knuckle, and then blend it. And then this guy looks out of whack. Just going to pick that up. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. Now let me go back to 4-1 here and back this one off. Okay, because that got pinched down a little badly. And now if I take a look, coming from this bone here, every once in a while you'll get this phenomenon, is what I like to call it, where I can't click the bones anymore. All I can select is this, that happens, just hit Control A and then click off, and now you can pick it again. I don't know why that happens, but it happens to me. It might not ever happen to you. And now I can pretty much see how my finger bends. Okay, I could break it, make a little scorpion finger, but I can just go like that. And then when I'm good and ready to be done, is assume the skin pose. Okay, so we just run down the chain, fixing everything. I'm gonna do the same thing when it comes time to do my elbow here. Okay, I'll try to give influence back and forth to make sure I maintain an elbow and make sure I get some decent crimping here, and I'm not losing too much volume. Do the same thing with my wrist and the rest of the thumb and all that. And whenever I'm done, I just assume my skin pose and I'm back to good to go. And then when I'm done and I like everything, I'm just going to mirror it over, and then I'm truly done. I just need to actually rig this in terms of setting up my controllers, which will be my IK and any control boxes or whatever, and including that weapon socket pyramid that I'm going to add to control my animation and give me something to snap the bone to. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video in here and let it encode. Then when I come back, I'll continue tweaking and see how quickly I can get through doing this while showing it in video.